because they're so close to having this power. All right. They stuck in Biden, and they've stuck in Camilla. She's just Biden again. She'll sign whatever's in front of her, read the notes. That's about it. They don't want any kind of a strong president whatsoever.
This is the Financial Survival Network. Now more than ever. The Financial Survival Network.
And welcome. You are listening to and watching the Financial Survival Network. Hey, unless you've been in a bunker or totally cut off from reality, you know that what's going on now is completely insane. We wanted to touch base with our good friend Martin Armstrong, get his take on the election, the economy, the stock market, gold, and the world in general. Marty, it's great to have you back. Hey, don't forget, you find him at armstrongeconomics.com. I suggest everybody go there, sign up for his daily missives, because you really got to see what you've been writing, Marty. So, real simple question, Marty. Where are we right now? What is going on right now?
Look, this is this is really an election between the neocons and the American people. What you have to understand is, as you know, I know some of these people. I mean, even some have spoken at our conferences back in the 90s. These people have been, I don't know, I think brain dead or damaged since the 50s, when we all had to hide underneath our desks in school because we're going to get nuked by the Russians or whatever.
Duck and cover.
Yeah, but it's they were against communism, and then when communism failed, they didn't change. Like I said, I was down in D.C., and I can tell you, when Reagan wanted to meet Gorbachev, they were against it. They said, oh, they couldn't call him a communist, so they just said, oh, you can never trust a Russian. So these people, that's why I've warned that, look, they either have to start a war or assassinate Trump, because they're so close to having this power. All right. They stuck in Biden, and they've stuck in Camilla. She's just Biden again. She'll sign whatever's in front of her, read the notes. That's about it. They don't want any kind of a strong president whatsoever.
It's like the last emperor of China, right? Just put the thing in front of them and sign it and shut up. And
yeah, I mean, look, as you know, I was part of the vetting process for people who wanted to be president. And it was always, do you think they're smart enough, et cetera. Then 1999, it was like, well, we want you to go down and meet Bush Jr. I said, yeah, okay, fine. And they said, oh, but this one's different. I said, what's different? And they said, oh, no, he's really stupid. And I said, excuse me? And they really did use that word. And I said, why would you make somebody stupid president? And the response was, look, he's got the name and we can win. And that's when I saw it first. They picked the cabinet. They picked Cheney. They put all these people in. I was even asked if I would take the chief economic advisor in the White House. I said, no, thank you. I'm not going to give up my company for a couple years stint in this. And ever since then, this has been the game. Once they tasted that power, they just don't want to give it back. So, I mean, look, Biden's not there 40% of the time. Camilla's running around basically campaigning. Just ask the question, who is running the government?
Yeah, I'd like to know that answer. And it's a cabal. It's a junta, right? We have a junta in this country.
You have to understand that there are what people call the deep state, or these bureaucrats that are not elected, and they're always there. It doesn't matter what administration you're talking about, Republican, Democrat, that's all kind of nonsense. In fact, the guy that wrote the thing, now Trump's is going to be a dictator, it was in the Washington Post. It was Kagan. Kagan is the husband of Victoria Nuland.
Right.
Why did he say that? Because Victoria Nuland is a neocon, and she was been in every administration, but Trump threw her out. All right.
For good reason, too. For good reason.
Yes. I mean, the same thing with John Bolton. I mean, Bolton would invade Canada to get 3 Russians. I mean, these people just, I don't know, they just hate them.
I mean, I'm laughing,
insane.
but it's sad, right? They are insane.
It is. I mean, I don't understand this nonsense, but I think, honestly, when Khrushchev said, "We will bury you," they all got their backs up and said, "Okay, fine. Well, we're going to spread democracy to the world." I mean, we don't even have democracy.
How's that working out? How's that working out?
Look, they've started every war since World War II. And you can go on YouTube or buy a book of Robert McNamara. He was the neocon that took us into Vietnam. And before he died, you can look at it on YouTube, and he did an apology. He says, we made a mistake. We were wrong. Well, 58,000 Americans died.
Yeah, 54,000, right. Yeah.
Yeah, and he said they thought Russia was involved, and they weren't. He said it was just a civil war. I mean, this has been going on since the 60s, all right? And like I said, I think it had to do with Khrushchev saying, "We'll bury you."
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, Russia is the entire world, and I don't know, but, they've been waging wars. You take Obama wanted to go into Syria. Why? Because there was a pipeline that was supposed to go through Syria from Qatar to cut off the fuel sales from Russia. And Assad said no. So all of a sudden, Assad's gassing his people, all this other kind of nonsense. And, he was rejected and going in. But I believe it's now been declassified that, the banter going into Iraq. I mean, there is a good movie, called Green Zone on it with Matt Damon about there was no weapons of mass destruction and all this other kind of stuff. But they had thought they were going to go into Iraq, take it out in less than 30 days. And the generals were basically saying, then we'll move into Tehran. Mission
accomplished, right? Mission accomplished.
I mean, I argued with Bill Kristol years ago. He basically, the theory was take out Saddam, Assad, and Gaddafi, remove all the dictators, and we'll bring peace to the Middle East. I said, I don't, this is nonsense. They don't understand. I mean, Saddam Hussein was not a religious fanatic. He kept a lot of the religious fanatics in check. Once you removed him, what did you get? You get all kind of sectarian crazy stuff, ISIS, beheading people, whatever.
Sick.
He at least kept them in check. And he was also the one that kept Iran in check. Iran is a Shiite, and they believe that the church should run the state. And that's why they were against Saudi Arabia, because they had a king. And so it's more of a, you're talking about religious things there in Islam. It's kind of like, the Catholics and the Protestants in England, I mean, these things are religiously deep, and you're not going to solve them by changing the leader.
Right.
That's just the way it is.
Right. It's tribal.
Yeah. It's what else you going to say? You can't change the culture of people. I mean, this has been the problem with allowing a lot of the Muslims into Europe.
Yeah.
On the first New Year's Eve, over 1,000 girls were raped. And, Germany told the police, don't put the word rape in there, use something else.
God.
And that was Merkel. So all these things are just, they cover up their mistakes back and forth. And unfortunately, these neocons they have really seized control of foreign policy.
Mm-hmm.
And they're in control of the United States foreign policy. I mean, NATO is the same thing. And you just have these, oh, well, and head of NATO came out and said, oh, well, if we give long range missiles to Ukraine to basically, attack even Moscow, it will not lead to an escalation of war. I mean, come on. Let's get real here. I mean, if China invaded California and they were in 500 miles into California, and then they started shooting missiles at Washington, would we do nothing? I mean, put this foot,
ridiculous.
The shoe on the other foot. Come on. They know what they're doing. They are poking, the bear. My concern is that Putin is not the warmonger. And we want her to he knows he's being baited.
Yeah.
All right. So the real problem here is Russia has their neocons the same as we do.
Yeah.
They're the guys behind, Putin. I'm concerned that, you had Ukraine invade Russia. All right. So he's been sitting on his hands. I don't, if he doesn't do something, the neocons behind him, they're going to overthrow Putin.
Mm-hmm.
And then what do you got? You got their neocons against ours, and you better duck and hide underneath your desk again.
I thought he endorsed Kamala Harris. Do you think that was like,
of course,
head fake?
Yeah. I mean, he knows the only shot of stopping World War III is Trump, who would go in there and fire all the neocons. But and that's why I think they tried to assassinate him. I mean, even this last assassination, just pick up the rug a little bit and look. You have a guy who comes all the way down to Florida, magically gets a gun down here somehow, and knows when Trump's going to be playing golf.
Yeah, how did that happen?
What's interesting is DeSantis is not coming out saying it bluntly, other than he says we're going to conduct our own investigation alongside of the FBI. Why? Because you don't trust the FBI. That's really what he's saying. He doesn't trust the Justice Department. Mm-hmm. The rumors that are flying around is that Trump's whereabouts have been leaked. I mean, look. I mean, anything's on the table at this stage in the game. Yeah. It's just completely nuts.
All right.
And that's what this is going on. These people. This is a power play.
Yeah. So let's go to the economy. What is going to be with the economy? With what we're seeing now for 24 and 25. What's going to be with gold? With the stock market? Are we heading for a major depression? And perhaps most importantly, what is going to happen with the dollar?
Well, you have to understand all this stuff about de-dollarization. This is also geopolitical. It's got nothing to do with gold or anything else. What this is about is that when they put sanctions on Russia, removing them from SWIFT, that sent a warning sign to everybody else. Then you had, Blinken threatening China, oh, if you give Russia arms, we'll do that to you. So they set up their own chip system. That's what the BRICS is all about. All right. Why are they going to gold? Because gold is neutral. Don't look at this as that they're investors. That's not the issue here. They don't care if gold's going to go down. The problem is you go into war China has 10% of U.S. national debt. They dumped 53 billion in the first quarter. All right. They're not going to be buyers. They're trying to get rid of stuff. All right. Why? Because if you go into war, do you think the U.S. is going to honor that debt? They'll default on any enemy.
Of course not.
So this is why the BRICS are going to gold, because it's not just the dollar, it's also the euro. All right. They cannot really consciously own debt of the United States or Europe when you're facing war. It's just not going to be paid.
Yeah, everyone knows it.
So it's not a question, oh, gee, gold's going to go to 5,000 or, that's not, they're not investors. All right. They're just trying to basically de-invest from U.S. and European debt. That's what the BRICS is all about. They set up their own clearing system, chips. I mean, this is what's going on. All right. And then that is these neocons. They don't care about the economy. They don't care about the people. This is all just their agenda to conquer, Russia. And you can look, I mean, before, this was all about democracy. We're defending democracy in Ukraine. And then all of a sudden, Lindsey Graham actually said the truth on Face the Nation. He said, there is 10 to 12 trillion dollars of natural resources in Ukraine, basically under Crimea. It's a gas field. We can't allow Russia and China to have that. What happened to democracy? In democracy, you got Zelensky suspending all elections. That's not democracy, all right? So my concern here is that when we look at everything, the computer showed that from May, we were looking at, we're heading into a recession into 2028. But this is going to be more like the 70s, and where we're looking at stagflation. All right, meaning that the COVID had a very serious impact, and that it created shortages. That's what set the inflation in motion.
Right.
All right. It's not the printing of the dollars or whatever. I mean, look, the national debt went up for 19 years and gold went down from 1980 into 1999 for 19 years. So obviously, gold's not tracking inflation or the debt or anything of that nature.
Yeah.
If you go back to 1980, you'll see gold went from 176 to 400 in 1979. It went from 400 to 875 in the last 6 weeks. Why? That's when Russia invaded Afghanistan. So it's geopolitical. It's confidence in the government that is the key. So as you see this drum beating of wars, this is what has really made gold go up. All right. The smart money knows what's happening here. And then you're threatening China and that, then they start dumping, European debt and American debt and swapping to gold because it's at least neutral.
Yeah.
All right. They can't get defaulted on it, and that's it. Now, what we have to worry about, and what I don't like what the computer is showing, and it's showing highs potentially in gold and the stock market here in 24. Why? Typically, you go into war, and that's what my concern is. What do? They shut down all the stock markets in 1914. Even the U.S. did. They're worried about capital flight. Oh, gee, if there's war, then people are going to sell their stocks and take the money elsewhere. All right. So that's all Europe closed its stock exchanges, and then the U.S. followed suit. So even if we go back to the American Civil War, all right, gold in terms of greenbacks ran up to about 200 in 1864.
Mhm.
And what did Lincoln do? Lincoln shut down the gold exchange. And the excuse was, oh, these people are making money off of, people dying on the battlefield.
Mhm.
It was rising because of war. All right. So my concern is that when it comes to precious metals, this is why I've been saying, I would use the coins rather than bullion and bars or whatever.
Right.
And I'd rather have, actual possession of it.
Mhm.
1933, when they confiscated gold, what did they do? All the institutions, they know, the banks, etc. All right, you have to turn over all the gold you have. They did, otherwise, they're being prosecuted and losing their license. So they know all the gold storages, and they know all this stuff. All right, they would have to comply. They did not come knocking on every door. Give me, all the $20 gold pieces you got in your sock drawer. So that's why so many 20 U.S. gold coins have survived. That's what the people had.
Right.
Okay, so I would say we're getting into a desperate situation.
Uh-huh.
And just, be mindful what these people will do. Particularly Europeans, they keep threatening, using long-range missiles to destroy Moscow and stuff. Look, I mean, I was just over in Europe, met with, talked to about 3 different governments. They're all so pro-war. It's crazy.
Yeah. How can
Italy, I just said, well, I'm very glad I came over because it's probably the last time I'm going to see the Colosseum.
Yeah.
So why
Right.
you say that? I said, because at least Hitler was respectful. He didn't bomb Paris because he thought it was a pretty city. He
Yeah.
didn't blow up the Colosseum. He didn't blow up but this time we're talking about nukes.
Yeah.
You can't be selective. You can't bomb the Capitol in Rome without taking out, the Colosseum this time.
Mhm.
The bombs are different.
Mhm.
So, you have to understand that. And so this war is a bit different than what we had before.
Mhm.
And and with the carpet bombing and stuff like that back then, I mean, we were after factories. You could just take out the factory,
Mhm.
but that's not the option these days.
Yeah.
So we just have to be
Cold War.
mindful here, and
Mhm.
that I don't, I mean, in Washington, they're saying, oh, Putin will never push the button. Don't worry about that. Very nice. Okay. You also said that Russia was involved in Vietnam, and that wasn't true either. But what
Mhm.
about the weapons of mass destruction that didn't exist? I mean, these people haven't gotten anything right yet. I mean, let's be honest here. So saying, oh, don't worry about nuclear war because he's not going to push the button. His nukes are all old anyhow. Very nice.
Yeah. That makes me
You
feel
have
good.
the look, he's got 5,000 of them. Even if 10 worked, I think we're in trouble, right? In Britain, you've got the former NATO British guy there. And he's saying the same nonsense. Oh, Russia wouldn't use a nuke because they know it would blow back on them.
Yeah.
These just seem to be excuses to please let us go in, and they think that they can just invade Russia, go right to Moscow. Putin's going to fall to his knees and say, "Oh, please forgive me, spare me my life." And that's what they're using Ukraine for. They couldn't get Putin to respond. He knows that if he attacks, it's full on. He's not the warmonger. He's been even telling Iran to sit on its hands. Don't take the bait. But my concern is that they have their neocons like we do.
Yeah.
And
this is true.
They overthrow Putin, and we got trouble.
So
we got real trouble.
So is gold, silver? What about silver? Silver has kind of been struggling at 30. Is that going to set a new high at some point here?
Yeah, I would look at the silver coins, 1964 and older, bags of those. That's what I would look at. My concern is that you get into war, they will shut down the gold exchange. They will shut down the stock markets. We're looking at capital controls. What they'll be afraid of is like in World War I. Oh, if we let them sell, then they'll move their money someplace else.
So
and
sequestration.
Of course, you have a lot of Chinese are in the markets. So then the excuse is, oh, we have to close it to prevent them from taking money back.
Of course.
This is the nonsense that you'll get. So that's my concern. That's why I say I think gold and silver coins will probably be the underground economy monetary system, so to speak. I wouldn't count on Bitcoin or anything like that either.
I think they'll shut it down, huh?
Well, all of that is traceable. That's the whole problem. Look, those of us that are in the computing world, we know that the code that is behind Bitcoin came from the CIA.
Yeah.
They even know the guy that even wrote it back there. That code's been around for quite some time. That's why a lot of us believe that Bitcoin was orchestrated by the CIA, because look, it's the perfect thing the government wants. They even did a white paper on it back in, I think, 96 it was.
I remember.
Look, if I give you $100 bill, they don't know where I got it from. But I give you 100 in Bitcoin, they know where it came from. And everybody they gave it down the line. This is what, I've been dealing with governments for, as you know, almost 50 years. And there are no mirrors in government. We are the problem. They never look at themselves. So,
all right. Well, we've been going at this. I think I'm going to break it into two parts. Make sure you go over to armstrongeconomics.com, sign up, get the daily missives from Martin, sign up at our site, financialsurvivalnetwork.com. If you've got a question for Martin, myself, leave it in the comments or send me an email, kl@kerrylutz.com. Martin, really appreciate you taking time out for your busy day and informing us about what the real deal is. Hopefully this video will be unfettered on our digital overlord site, if you know what I mean. The initials are YT. Anytime I cut something out of a video for you out there, it's because I know that they're going to set their sights. Would you believe, Martin, they just removed some commentary I did in 2018. They just discovered that it advocated, unspeakable acts that I don't even know what I advocated. So that's what we're up against. We didn't talk about the tech oligarchs and what they're about, but next time I want to spend some time with you on it, because I've had to preemptively self-censor, and that's because I don't want to lose my channel, No,
so, I know this is we're fighting for democracy, supposedly, and free speech. Yeah, right.
It's really downright Orwellian.
Yeah, no, it is. It's gotten to be very, very bad.
So we'll go for it. We'll see what happens. I wish there was a tool I could run the video through to figure out whether they would object to it up front and what they'd object to. But I'll look through it. I'll do as little editing as possible. That's what I always do, especially with your interviews. Appreciate you, Martin. Thanks so much for coming on.
Well, thank you for inviting me, and take care over there.